facing outwards in a baby carrier. Here is what you need to know. Now, many babies will enjoy this outwards facing position once they're getting more curious and exploring the world around them. The earliest point at which you should have your baby in this outwards facing or front facing position is around about 4 months or soon after. Now, you need to make sure they've got full head, neck and upper body control before they're in this position. Now, I know that even newborns can have quite strong necks and like to hold their head up, but you want to make sure that when you sit with your baby on your lap and your hands around their torso, they're no longer bobbing their heads around like this. We want to make sure they're consistently holding their head up all the time before we have them in this outwards facing position. The other marker we're looking for is to make sure that they're tall enough so they can sit with their mouth clear of the top of this body panel. If you find that the panel is too high, you can try lifting them slightly and shoving some of the fabric up between the two of you and fixing it into place. But if you find that they're still sinking down inside the baby carrier, you will need to make sure that they do a little bit more growing before you try them in this outwards facing position. Now, please remember, like with most baby related matters, this is just a phase. So what commonly happens, and we see again and again over the years, is that babies get to around 10 or 12 months in this position and parents start to say the carrier is uncomfy. Now, what you have to remember is that when your baby is facing outwards, all of their weight is slightly pulling away from you. So as they pull away from you, it does put more pressure on your back. So a baby front facing is always going to feel heavier than a baby who is facing you in a carrier. So once you get to around 10 or 12 months, what do? Well, the good news is you don't need to stop carrying your baby. What you'll need to do at this point is turn your baby around so they're facing you again, but have them positioned so their arms are over the top of the carrier. So like when they're facing you, they're sort of giving you a little bit of a hug. That way your baby won't feel too restricted. They'll still be able to move around and look around, even spin around in their carrier, but their centre of gravity will match yours again, so they won't feel as heavy. Or you can try and have your baby on your back if it's a carrier like this that allows it. So from around 4 months to 10 or 12 months, this outwards facing position is great as long as your carrier is designed for it. But once they get past this point, or once they simply start to feel too heavy, with big babies that could be at 7, 8, 9 months, have them facing you with their arms over the top of the carrier. Now, if you don't want to carry your baby facing outwards, or if you don't have a carrier that is designed for it, that's no problem at all. Babies never have to be facing outwards. As I say, from 4 months, they can be facing you with their arms over the top of the carrier, which is a great alternative. In terms of baby's hip positioning, one thing you will want to be a little extra careful of and attentive of is just to make sure that their legs aren't dangling down too much. So in a well-designed carrier like this one, you can see that even in an outwards facing position, the baby is seated in a spread squat position with their knees higher up from their bum. If you're in a more narrow-based carrier and the carrier really only fits around here and doesn't go from knee to knee, it's going to be harder to get this optimum positioning. So it might be time to size up. So those are some core things you need to know about front-facing carrying. Remember, it's just a phase, it's not essential, but the other takeaway I want you to have from this is to make sure you do this for shorter periods of time. Now, no manufacturer says exactly what shorter periods means. My advice would be to go for outward-facing carrying for around 20 to 45 minutes, maybe an hour at most if you've got a particularly strong back and shoulders. The reason for this is, again, just a physics issue. You will find that after a period of time, they will start to feel heavier, so it's better to have your baby facing you at that point. It's also important to remember with small babies, they can get a little bit of sensory overload. So right now there's a lot of stimulation coming into my child's eyes. They can see a lot of sound, a lot of noise, and they can't see our face. So probably after a chunk of time, it may be sensible just to let them have a little bit of a rest and face you. Also for nap time, parent-facing positioning is very important because babies shouldn't ever sleep when they're facing outwards. That's because in an outwards position, your baby, when asleep, will lose head control, their chin can drop onto the chest, and that's really not a brilliant idea for supporting their airway sufficiently. So please, when your back starts to get a bit sore, when your baby looks like they might be ready for a nap, please turn them round and have them facing you ready for a cuddle. So those are some headlines. If you've got any more questions about outward facing baby carrying, please do let me know.